Welcome to the Due Diligence Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Kraft, and for more than 10 years with SNN, I've been doing interviews with MicroCap management teams at investor conferences globally as well as online. Our SNN Live CEO video interviews are meant to pique interest, and then one can discover more by going to that company website. But personally, I always have more questions I want to ask. On this show, I'll be chatting with public company executives from microcap companies, and we'll dive deeper into companies that are rarely profiled. Microcap traditionally is overlooked, unloved, and absolutely never featured on legacy financial media outlets unless something material is going on. That's a good story. With my experience interviewing management teams, having interviewed most of them before, I've built up a network of companies, so there will be no shortage of content. Furthermore, this is an opportunity for me to showcase some of the qualitative lessons I've learned from guests on the Planet MicroCap podcast. You can expect high-quality interviews with management teams that may have exposure to broader macro trends that you may never have thought of. One of the many reasons why I love the microcap space. So if you love microcaps and especially love learning about companies before the professionals do, let's start our due diligence. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not provided as financial, legal, or any other advice. The information is not investment advice or an offer to buy or sell any securities or make any investment. The views expressed by guest speakers are their own, and any reference to third-party products, services, or information does not constitute an endorsement thereof by SNN or its affiliates. SNN expressly disclaims all liability for any individual's use of the information presented in this podcast. My guests on the show today are Chairman and CEO Andrew Duncan and CFO and Director Charlie Glavin at Boardwalktech Software Corp. It's a publicly traded company. The symbols are BWLK on the TSX Venture and BWLKF on the OTCQB. Boardwalktech has developed a patented digital ledger technology platform currently used by Fortune 500 companies running mission-critical applications worldwide. Boardwalktech's digital ledger technology and its unique method of managing vast amounts of structured and unstructured data is the only platform on the market today where multiple parties can effectively work on the same data simultaneously while preserving the fidelity and provenance of the data. Boardwalktech can deliver collaborative, purpose-built enterprise information management applications on any device or user interface with full integration with enterprise systems of record in a fraction of the time it takes other non-digital ledger technology-based platforms. I've done some short-form video interviews with Andrew Duncan for our channel over the last year, and I wanted to dive deeper into the Boardwalktech story on topics such as how their digital ledger technology platform works and is not just another smart Excel spreadsheet. Having a patented digital ledger technology platform before quote unquote ledger technology became associated with blockchain and crypto, and taking the next step to profitability. With that, please enjoy my conversation with Chairman and CEO Andrew Duncan and CFO and Director Charlie Glavin. Welcome back, everyone, to the due diligence series here at Planet MicroCap. I'm your host, Robert Kraft. You can follow me on Twitter at Bobby K. Kraft. That's BOBBYKKRAFT. And joining me today is the team from Boardwalktech Software Corp. It's a publicly traded company. I got two symbols for you: BWLK on the TSX Venture and BWLKF on the OTCQB. And the team representing Boardwalktech here today is Andy Duncan, Chairman and CEO, as well as Charlie Glavin, CFO from the company. Guys, thank you for joining me today. How you doing?
Hey, Bobby. Great. Thanks for hosting us, and look forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. And Charlie, thank you for joining us as well.
Thanks as well, Bobby.
All right. So the way we've done a few interviews in the past, and Boardwalktech has actually presented at a few of our conferences before. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to share with our audience a little bit deeper into the story for those that may have missed those interviews or haven't seen your presentations before. So Andy, I'm going to come to you first. Can you start us off with the description of the company in one sentence?
We are all about helping companies better understand the massive amount of data that they manage on a daily basis, which allows them to get to decisions faster, which provides for a much better outcome.
Very good. I had one line for you if you wanted. I was going to say the digital ledger platform helping enterprises get control of all their unstructured data. Is that with that?
That works as well. Sure. There's multiple ways to kind of skin the cat, as you say.
Very,
Bobby, I guess I would put in one additional word: unique. We have faced this, and a lot of our customers have indicated to us they've tried other solutions, and we provided them with this unique capability.
Very good. All right. So I want to take a step back and also look at the history of the company, how we arrived at this point. So Andy, I'm going to start with you, and then Charlie, add some color in as well. Take me back to what the original problem Boardwalktech was looking to solve. When did that start? And then how did you evolve to where you're at today?
Yeah. So the original problem that we tried to solve was creating what we call the enterprise spreadsheet. So the problem in the enterprise, which still very much exists after 14 or 15 years that we've been chasing this problem, is that most work in the enterprise still gets done in Microsoft Excel. So there's 1.3 billion users of Microsoft Excel today. And these large enterprises over the years have spent literally billions of dollars on Oracle and SAP and Salesforce.com, but yet most of the data still ends up in Microsoft Excel. And then what happens is that companies start to build applications off of that Excel by adding formulas, emailing the spreadsheet around. And our original goal was to say, how do we solve this problem? How do we turn a spreadsheet not into a single user environment, but how do we turn it into a multi-user environment that allows people to be able to easily share and track the changes that have occurred with multiple people working on the same spreadsheet at the same time? That was the original goal. And quite frankly, there's a lot that is still in our core value proposition that tracks right back to that original problem that we're solving.
Absolutely. And Charlie, I'm going to come to you on this. I mean, look, you're the CFO. You should be Mr. Spreadsheets about all this, right? So, I mean, when did you come into the company, and what was the opportunity that you also saw here?
Well, I kind of came from sort of a unique background in that I started off at Fidelity, worked at Intel, worked with the VC community, along with being the CFO of other smaller and mid-size companies, particularly in the semiconductor industry. I'll just lay it out this way. I would have killed for this solution. When you have multiple people trying to input, manage, and work off of databases, often in Excel. And I had guys who created phenomenal macros, and I've used a lot of great add-ons for Excel, but it was still deficient. And so I was attracted to this after talking to friends within the industry who were existing customers of Boardwalk, or people who were looking at future trends. And the idea of a distributed ledger, and Boardwalk calls it a digital ledger, was unique. And it was basically, Bobby, a way of, if you had a blank piece of paper and you said, this is not an evolution in terms of how you would manage data or an Excel spreadsheet, but how would you do it if you had to, design it from scratch? And that's what attracted me to it. The other thing was, to be really blunt, was Andy attracted me because you often see a CEO, when you talk to him and, during the recruiting process, will say, yeah, we have an opportunity in all of these different markets. And Andy was disciplined enough as a CEO, said, yeah, that would be a great market. The answer is no, not yet. And I said, this is a guy who I can work with. And it also meant that we were targeting out areas. We weren't doing a buckshot. And I said, this is a company that could use my background, my acumen, both within the industry, financial Wall Street background. Conversely, this was a solution that I can sell. I could sell to myself. I could sell to other guys who'd been using out there, because it wasn't saying that you were doing something wrong, but rather you didn't have the right tools to do it better. And that's what really Boardwalk's doing for any of our enterprise customers.
Going off of what Charlie just said there, Andy, I wanted to come back because when I gave the one line at the beginning, and when I was digging through LinkedIn, and you correct me if I'm wrong, you're a founder of the company, correct?
Yeah,
Yes?
I mean, I came in very early when there was only two guys, basically. Well, they call it, two guys in a hot tub, right? I mean,
Gotcha. Okay. So very, very early on. So, I mean, not to like get this all like full on aggregated so that become like lumped in with like another blockchain company or anything like that. But you describe yourselves as a digital ledger platform, and that's it's like ledger, digital ledger, smart contracts. Oh, what's happening here? So, was that an intentional choice in the description of the company?
Yeah. So I would say that in the history of the company, one of the things, this is my fifth company now in Silicon Valley. And one of the things that's very difficult to get right is the go-to-market. And while our technology is very unique, and we really were the first ones to market with what we call a digital ledger database and digital ledger technology, what we've struggled with, at least in the early days, was getting the go-to-market right. When in 2016, 15, when the market got kind of heated up around blockchain, and when you look at a digital ledger, we really do chain transactions together, which is what provides the history of what we do. And we reworked the go-to-market for the company to talk about being a blockchain digital ledger environment. And quite frankly, when we took that to market, and it takes a couple of years to kind of turn the ship in a new go-to-market, it didn't work. And these enterprises were just not ready yet to kind of bite off the big word blockchain. And even though there's a lot of noise about it still that's out there, quite frankly, a digital ledger and a private permission digital ledger, which is what we sell, versus a public, blockchain digital ledger, is a totally different beast. And companies are starting to recognize that while there's a lot of value in the core technology of a blockchain-like solution, that the method by which we do it is better. And so again, we had to rework kind of our go-to-market. And in 2018, in conjunction with our RTO on the venture exchange, we decided to again change our go-to-market away from blockchain, focusing on digital ledger technology only, and also change our approach with regard to moving away from perpetual licenses to a right to access ARR model. And that has really been the thing that has created the excitement with regard to the company. We almost look like from 2018, June of 2018 on, we really are kind of a new company.
Absolutely. Not to make a bad joke, but do you think Microsoft Office back in the day, once, with Word doc and you had track changes, they're like, oh, we were a digital ledger technology. You track all our changes and you could see who did it and who didn't,
Yeah, Bobby, I kind of kidded around. We were almost like the Palmolive dishwashing liquid. Is the company wasn't chasing trends. That was the thing. And I joined in 2018 to help launch, the SaaS model. And it was really, they created this collaborative platform. That was actually one of the names at the time. And somebody looked and said, hey, you're really a digital ledger. Or we talked about the unique technology, which was at the atomic level. You think of it like an Excel cell, chaining the transactions, any changes that occurred. And somebody said, hey, you're a blockchain. So this wasn't a company chasing trends. It was more that they were establishing a solution ahead of the crowd. And then people looked and said, well, you could also call it the following. So in that sense, the platform, the technology, the solution was there. The marketing words to describe this new capability was really the tricky aspect, because people always gravitate back to something they're comfortable with. So they said, oh, you're like Smartsheets. I'm like, no, we're much more than Smartsheets. They wanted to come to something simplified. So maybe the easiest way that I've described this, think of us as a three-dimensional spreadsheet. Rather than have to email, 20, 30 different versions, and then you got to go back or you saved over. You have one spreadsheet that basically will track every single change you've ever met, with a timestamp and authorization, so So words such as provenance, traceability, audit ability all come to play that really weren't, in full existence previously. Oh, by the way, everyone can make the changes simultaneously. So we're not saying who's up and you don't get that dreaded, you pulled up a read-only version, you can't save.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just do me a favor. Don't, or I don't know, you can do it if you want, but I hope in a year or two, I don't see Boardwalktech blockchain solutions,
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay, good. All right. So let's dig into the company's technology itself. On the company's investor presentation, you have a great image here where basically you have your Boardwalk digital ledger technology itself in the center. And you feed into it not just your existing Excel capabilities, but you have all your other unstructured data and then also your structured data. So give me a little wrap on how the technology actually works, how enterprises work with it, take it from there.
Sure. So when you look at the typical enterprise today, there's a couple of key stats that's important. One is information in the enterprise is doubling every 2 years. Okay, so think about that. Okay. The second thing is that of that information that's doubling every 2 years, 80% of the data is unstructured, which means that when it comes into an organization, it's going to come into you as in a form of an email, a tweet, some HTML, a PDF attachment. It's like there's no structure to that data. And the problem in the enterprise today is that there's so much data that people spend about 40% of their time just chasing information in the enterprise. And so how do they, once they're chasing the information, what do they do? Like, what tools do they use to be able to align that data and try and understand it? And the only tool that's really out there that allows kind of a citizen within the enterprise community to basically align the data is Microsoft Excel, right? There isn't any other tool, right? And so there might be, little tools for little things that you do, subcomponents of that, but from a generic standpoint of, it's Excel. So what happens is that you get these people that say, okay, I need to go get the following 6 pieces of data, and they're in 6 different databases. So I got to log into the database. I got to run a report. I got to get the data. Then I copy it. Then I paste it into a spreadsheet. And once I get it pasted into a spreadsheet, then I start writing formulas against that to say, well, what if this happens? And then I start emailing the spreadsheet around. And before you know it, you got 50 people in your business unit on this spreadsheet where you're cutting and pasting data, you're emailing stuff around, everybody's making changes to cell M21 and K38, but yet there's no ability to track what's going on. And this is the core problem in the enterprise. And Bobby, guess what? There are literally in every enterprise, hundreds and sometimes thousands of these Excel spreadsheet processes that are mission critical to the business. Forget about you just opening up your spreadsheet and doing kind of a quick analysis on some stuff. We're talking about mission critical, millions of dollars of decisions a minute are being made out of the data that's sitting in the spreadsheet. And we said, wait a minute, this is such a big problem, not only from a compliance standpoint, from an ESG, from a security standpoint, but just the fact that you can't track changes so that you really don't know that the data in these spreadsheets are correct. So what we did is we developed what we call the Boardwalk platform, basically, the digital ledger platform. And in the platform, it's a low-code application platform that allows a company to absorb a spreadsheet process very rapidly, by the way. It's a single schema, so there's no writing of any code. And then from there, you start to apply the tools that we have in our platform, such as integration into the back-end system so that you don't have to go and copy and paste a report out of Oracle and paste it wrong, okay, and have a problem, right? So we've got integration, workflow, all of the other tools that allow you to very rapidly build an application. And the cool thing is that our digital ledger database, it acts as a single version of the truth. So when you are now part of a spreadsheet process that is now running on the Boardwalk digital ledger platform, You open up your spreadsheet on your desktop, you make your changes as normal, but when you're done, instead of emailing the spreadsheets around, you simply hit submit refresh. And what we do is we create a secure link between your spreadsheet version and basically the digital ledger database. And when you hit submit, and let's say you made 5 changes, all 5 of those changes come into the digital ledger. They're inserted and chained together so that there's complete provenance with regard to everything that's going on, right? All history, nobody can mess with the data. And now when the other people refresh their spreadsheet, they can see Bobby's changes that have come in with a complete audit trail on what's going on. So the ability to now take these, what were manual spreadsheet processes, put them onto the digital ledger platform, create an application very rapidly where everybody's seeing the same data, it's all secure, it's all compliant, you've got the history for doing all of your compliance stuff. All of that is there. But on top of that, we recently landed a large, very well-known multinational bank that's based in New York. And this particular bank has got somewhere around 40,000 spreadsheets that will be converted over onto the Boardwalk Digital Ledger platform. Okay, this is real life stuff. In the initial rollout of this, we had a director come back and make a statement that said, what used to take me 2 days to aggregate and align the data across a 50-person process now takes me 15 minutes with Boardwalk. Okay, so not only do we have the security, the compliance, but we're improving the business process significantly, which goes back to what I originally talked about, which is if a company can get the right data aligned that allows them to make a decision faster, they're going to beat the competition. Okay, so you look at the supply chain and you say, if you knew 2 days earlier that you were actually going to have a stock out of a particular product in a particular region, and you could make a call and air express that product to the stores in that region so that you don't have a stock out, you're creating a lot of value. And if you were waiting for some stupid report out of Oracle or SAP or Salesforce.com that you got every Thursday at 3 o'clock of what happened a week ago, you're not going to have that data. So the guy with the data and the right data faster is always going to win. And this is what we're all about. So I hope that answered your question about kind of the value prop.
That was fantastic. I really appreciate that full overview right there. I get it. I hope everybody listening also gets it as well. And
well, so far 22 of the Fortune 500 get it. And, part of our kind of entire go-to-market is once we get in with the company and they start utilizing the platform, because they've got hundreds, sometimes thousands of these spreadsheets, we start to spread across the organization. We call it our land and expand strategy. So we've got people that are working with each of our clients to say, okay, where next can we provide a lot of value for you? And because it's a generic platform, we can go across supply chain, HR, finance, anything where there's a lot of spreadsheets and or data that needs to be aligned and collected and used and decisions made.
Absolutely. So Charlie, I want to come to you on this one because now I want to talk about the target market. Andy just mentioned, some of the customer wins already. The company's put out some press releases on a few of the customer wins. And also you mentioned how, look, sounds like an application that can work for almost any kind of business, but it sounds like the company's specific focus right now is on financial services, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
I would probably argue historically it's been on supply chain overall.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
the financial market was not one where the company chased, but rather an existing customer who was already servicing somebody within the this top 5 bank. Basically went in and said, guys, you've tried SAP, Oracle, you've tried other low-code apps like Appian. We've actually been a customer of Boardwalk. We think it can solve this solution. And the reason why I mention that is we weren't the first, we weren't the fifth choice, But that actually provided us a lever in terms of we had an existing customer come in. But supply chain in these areas where we had land and expand, they've included a variety of different customers within those areas. But it's because of the efficiencies we bring. So Bobby, let me kind of segue into, it's almost a matter of, okay, you guys are growing at a CAGR of 45 to 50% per year since you launched this model. Great. And what I'm telling you is we haven't even touched some of the markets. So we've proven, a multi-million-dollar per year relationship with this bank, and we've got other prospects. Andy's background is in insurance. That is ripe, for a tangential market. The pharmaceutical market, as far as track and trace in terms of efficacy for drugs, we're working in the ecosystem with that. That is not yet within, evolved. The ESG market is ripe, for us as well, again, because it provides tracing and efficiency within your supply chain overall. And so if you stop looking at differences between these different markets and start to look at things such as the words provenance, audit trail, traceability, and say, which of the markets, could you address? The answer is yes. And as I said earlier, we're not going out and chasing all of them. And that's the key. And we also realized, hey, we can't do this alone. So we're working with partners. So the guys that brought us in to the bank, an existing partner. So we have a teaming agreement with there. We're bringing in people with expertises and Rolodexes. We're leveraging others. So we're not arrogant enough to say, hey, we'll do this alone, but rather, this is a growth opportunity for us. Who can you use? This then leads to the other point. A lot of these new customers that we're getting came from referral of existing customers. So what better, validation do you have when a customer says, hey, you guys should really use this Boardwalk. They really helped us overall. And that's also that inflection point we're facing right now.
That was literally what I was going to ask. That next question is,
I figured that.
And of course, was on on the strategy, on the growth strategy itself, because you clearly have your lane right now that you're continuing to sell, provide services and everything like that. But then there's so much potential opportunity there as well.
Right.
So what would you say is the company's main strategy right now? And then at what point do you see yourself starting to expand some of these other opportunities? Andy?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that.
Okay.
So I would say that there's three segments of it, Bobby. One is that we're going to continue to bring on new logos that are large organizations that mainly are kind of supply chain focused because the opportunity is just enormous and we know that market very well. Anytime you've got inventory risk and you've got a lot of data moving around, there's a wonderful opportunity. So that's number one. Number two is we're going to continue to work on land and expand. It's the easiest thing to do is to go to a customer that you already have a contract and a relationship with and be able to expand your relationship so that we can drive additional incremental revenue, mainly ARR, from those customers. So that is there. The third area where we're going to really focus is in financial services. We are extremely excited about the fact that the solution that we have provided to this large bank, and we signed a second bank as well, a large Indian bank, that is very unique in the industry. And when you look at the problem that they've got, where let's say you've got 40,000 spreadsheets, and the way in which they've been trying to solve the problem, that is the only technology that does it, is they're trying to rewrite the spreadsheet application into a regular application, which means you have to build a new database, you got to build out an intelligence model, and you got to put a new UI on it. And most of the UIs that are going on those are, browsers. And so what happens is that it takes 3 guys 3 months to do that. And then they take the application to the user and the user says, oh, heck no, I'm not using that. For 8 years, I've matured this spreadsheet with 1,000 formulas and 40 macros. My bonus is tied to this. You can't force me to some browser that I've got to be online. It isn't flexible. I'm not going there. So there are two problems in that the banks have. One is three problems. One is they got a gazillion spreadsheets everywhere. Second is, in order for them to get these spreadsheets into compliance based upon the OCC regulations, which is the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency under the U.S. Treasury, that if it's going to take three guys 3 months to rewrite the app, and you do the math on 30 or 40,000 of these spreadsheets, it's not going to work. And then the third thing is when you go to the user and say, okay, get rid of your spreadsheet, here's your new application, and they say no, you got a big problem. What Boardwalk does is we can actually convert those spreadsheets in our single scheme environment over onto our platform in a matter of sometimes hours, sometimes days compared to, months or quarters. So the order of magnitude of being able to get these spreadsheets into compliance across 30 or 40,000 of them is significant compared to the current solutions that are out there. That uniqueness that we bring to the market, we think is going to effectively just blow open the entire financial services market, where once they hear about us and they know about us, these banks, in order to solve this problem, they're going to go look for the right solution, and hopefully they're going to land on us. We're doing a lot of work right now and trying to educate the market and the partners on what this means, so that then they can go, yeah, that's why that big old bank in New York selected them, and that's what we're going to do as well. And if you then start to do the math and you say a couple million a year times 100 banks times a 90% margin on this business, you start to go, of course, Andy, that's exactly a market that you guys need to go and focus on. And that's what we're doing. So the three things are new logos, land and expand with our existing customers, and the financial services industry. Now, if some big deal came along outside of that, call it in pharma or something like that, would we work on it? Yeah, of course. And we're going to continue to expand our markets as we build the resources that have the knowledge to be able to see success in those markets.
Bobby, if I could, one of the things that I want to stress to the investors is, while these opportunities and often problems, mothers or necessity is the mother of invention. While we had this opportunity due to this compliance issue, the digital ledger solution is more about improving capital and asset efficiency. And so these are basically the same thing. So when you talk about a bank, the reason why they've got to be in compliance is the way that they have their tier 1, tier 2 capital. And that's why the OCC, comes in for avoidance of kind of the domino effect of what occurred in the 2008, 2009 period. But that same idea of understanding your exposure, your inefficiencies, your blind spots, so to speak, this is a supply chain issue. So for example, in the semiconductor industry, we've helped customer be able to improve their RFQ process, which turns into higher conversions, winning more deals. And one of the things that attracted me was, having worked with the Asia market for 20 plus years, is time zones and you get discrepancies. And that's not a problem. That's just ongoing. When you put in orders multiple times a day and you have to adjust them, that's regular business. And then you have either a snag or something else and you say, hey, we got to reconcile it. I kid you not, I've had periods where it's taken me 2 to 3 days to reconcile, saying, oh, this guy from Hong Kong said that the amount was 40,000, not 50,000. And you go back to the time in an email, because that's the way it's been done. Emails and PDFs being sent by email, and then you try it. The closest thing you get to timing is the timestamp of your email that may or may not show. It's a ridiculous and inefficient process. But then think about what that means, that if you're more efficient, you have more visibility within your channel, more visibility into those EUCs that the banks have to concern. Now you become more efficient in terms of it, less buffer stock. And let's face it, buffer stock is a way of saying, I can't afford to stock out. So I'm going to put in a larger buffer or Q ratio to avoid a stock out, which is really saying you don't have as much visibility because your spreadsheet and the inefficiency of your systems is causing that blind spot. That's why I keep coming back to the idea of we're not chasing a given solution, but rather providing enhanced provenance, traceability, visibility, accountability, within it. And that goes across multiple markets.
Very good. All right. So I want to get into now the competitive landscape. Charlie, you brought up one of the competitors a little bit earlier. I think it was called Cheat Sheets. Tell me what this kind of looks like. Who are you guys competing with directly against? And
so given the uniqueness of the solution, oddly enough, it's not the direct competitors wouldn't be a given name overall. Because again, we haven't found anybody who's taken this approach to doing it. So yes, there's SAP and there's Appian, and quite frankly, for certain applications, we customers should use that. Probably our biggest competitor is the not invented here solution. And so one of the things that, as I mentioned before, that we try to drive in with customers is we're not trying to go in and tell an IT guy, hey, you're doing something wrong, but rather, man, you're a really good doctor, but using a stethoscope, I'm selling you an MRI. Think how much better of a doctor you could be. That's the approach that these guys need to do. But all they've been given so far are stethoscopes and x-ray machines. And that's why if you're the first guy selling an MRI, who's your competitor? The x-ray machine. So now it's a little bit of Porter's cross, for a better way of describing it, is unique. The other one, biggest competitor is the status quo, MO. Doing spreadsheets, attaching it to emails, which I believe McKinsey still calls digital, believe it or not. That is not the approach. Now take a look at it as far as how you're addressing structured data. So if you're trying to take a look at who our competitors are, yes, for certain solutions, we will come up against the traditional Oracles and SAP, and some areas that would make sense. But overall, we would say probably the biggest competitor is the status quo. How have people been doing it? And Bobby, let me go back. I've been looking for a solution like this since, for the last 25 years, whether I was at Intel, heading up, global semis at Credit Suisse, whether I was the CFO of a smaller company, it's still been there. Nobody I ever saw came, and I've looked at NetSuite, I've looked at, other low codes, and there's some really good solutions, but it wasn't it. This is it. And I think I would challenge anybody right now who wants to, figure this out, come onto our website and see one of our demos. And I think once you do it, as one of our customers said, the bell rang off. Once you saw it, you kind of got it. And I had never seen it before. I guess it's kind of the way that if you'd never seen an airplane before and you saw it, you go, holy crap, what was that? Sorry for my French.
Yeah, I mean, Bobby, I'll give you two examples if you don't mind. I dive in here. Well, I was on the phone this morning with a chip company and checking in on them, existing customer. They had launched a project that was supposed to take 16 weeks with one of the large IT consulting companies and implementing a supply chain solution that was, SAP, a module. And it's now a year and a half. It's still not done. The budget, it's way over budget. And we see this all the time because these companies come in and say 70% of the applications out of the box, 30% is customized, but it's really 90% out of the box or 90% customized, 10% out of the box, because everybody's data is different. Everybody does things differently. And they've got all these different sub processes that are running and different data stores. And it's really hard. So when we come in and say, we can do that same thing in 6 weeks and give you a much, much better result, much faster. People go, yeah, that's terrific. The other thing that's interesting about competition is that we have a large cosmetics manufacturer in New York that's a customer. We're doing great with them on land expand. We continue to build out applications for them. Their ARR continues to increase. And it's really an exciting thing to see the land and expand be successful across multiple business units there. But one of the problems that they had to do with formulas. So if they've got 10,000 products, and they're manufacturing it, and there's chemicals in these products, they have to build a formula. And the formula has to be tracked so that if you make a change to the formula, your packaging has to change, your instructions to how to use it has to change. There's ESG issues in exporting it to different countries and geos. It's a very complex thing. There's no application that's been built by SAP or Oracle or anybody else to track formulas. So what do? They put it all in a big hairy spreadsheet. And then when someone comes in and they make a change to a formula and it's not tracked, they're in trouble because they don't know how that changed, who made the change, or the implication of what has to be done if a formula has to change. And so the net is that they build all this out in these big hairy spreadsheets and it gets out of control. We come in and we take that same spreadsheet and we basically put control around it that now allows them to significantly improve the process and really improve the way in which they're managing this, which means at the end, getting product to market faster. And that's how they make money. And that's important to them. And so, that's a great example. So competition, look, there's a gazillion little apps out there that if you want to solve this problem or that problem, you can, or you can go build it yourself. But I think that the biggest issue that we have is more complacency of people saying, oh, we'll just continue to do it the way that we do it until we can prove to them the real value of automating this in a rapid fashion.
So I now want to talk about the execution side of the business, right? I think we got the full picture. We understand the target markets. We understand the product suite. Now I want to talk about, where the company's at in terms of that, because, towards the end of June, the stock has been on a bit of a tear, 30 cents. Today we're recording this on September 8th. I think it's about 86 cents, something like that. Not only that, in the last quarter, basically near-term profitability right there. So I want to understand a little bit better in terms of the company's strategy for go-to-market growth, as well as then turning the corner on profitability. So who wants to take that one first?
Yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
Okay.
So I think the operative word, Robert, is we're targeted at growth right now, not at the expense of profitability, but not putting profitability as the absolute goal. It was much in the way that we described our guidance. For hitting 6.5 to 7 million, that was the first public guidance that the company has given, because we had the visibility and we didn't want to rely on a lot of pipeline conversion within it. But the key that we said is that is not our end goal, but rather we're looking to exceed it. And so what are the opportunities? So one of the advantages, and I don't think that's been brought up overall, is we have a lot of operating leverage. Andy mentioned that even for one of our largest customers, from the time they signed their license to the time they went live with their own clients was 6 weeks, and took us 4.5 heads to do it. And they're not even full-time all the time on that. And the reason for that is we're not rewriting software code. This is why you don't have the West Wing of your company with 40 guys, still doing implementation like Andy was referencing with the customer overall. So in terms of our growth strategy right now, it's monetization of the pipeline and using existing customers and existing partners and new partners to add new logos along with in customers is the expansion into other market areas as well. If you take a look at it, the overall strategy is we will increase our OpEx, but having our revenue grow at a faster pace than that. And as new opportunities avail themselves, is being able to execute on that. Because again, profitability, and break-even line is a line in the sand. That is something we want to race through and become sustainable. We've already paid off $7.3 million in debt since 2018. We're on the cusp of being profitable. Now the question is, we have this growth opportunity between referrals of customers, new salespeople coming on, but we're not having to hire 20 to 50 guys, but we will be hiring. We will augment our existing platform to have further capabilities as well, not because of competitive threats, but that's what the customers need. And we are not arrogant enough to say, hey, good partners, for example, if somebody already has a relationship and is approved within a bank, why not leverage them and get 80% of a deal, as opposed to, no, we'll do it alone and get 100%. That's the sort of opportunity that we're there. So it's selectively spend, but have the revenue outpacing that growth. Profitability will then become a result as opposed to the goal itself. And so right now, as Andy said, is selectively target those areas. We're not focusing everything just on the banking industry either. Half of our growth came from our traditional organic markets as well. So this is where we're saying, no, we're not switching over. We're not chasing. We're applying our solution and growing where it's welcome, for a better way of describing it. And that we've actually had somebody who we tried to hire as a sales guy in 2018, who's got a really nice Rolodex. He came back to us. So that, I think, is another indication of that we will hire good salespeople who are going to bring it in and get us into the customers that will enable that growth.
Very good. Andy, you want to add any color to that?
The word execution, Bobby, is the key for us. When we did our Q1 earnings call, which were a March 31 fiscal date, we did our Q1 earnings call and our press release. And when we got that information out, we basically said we're going to let the numbers speak for themselves. And that's exactly what we're doing now. We really are a freight train that is full-blown, pedal to the metal, rolling right now. And I think we're going to let the investors just look at the numbers, and we're going to let the numbers speak for themselves. But we also are, we're a very mature management team. We know what it takes. And the bottom line is we got to sell, and we got to execute, and we got to bring in top line revenue. Everything else takes care of itself after that.
Absolutely. That actually dovetails into my next question, because, we've painted, the picture here, the opportunity, growth prospects, all that stuff, but at the same time, I want to play devil's advocate and give the other side of the token. And that has to do with the company's downside risks, and clearly outlined right there is one of them is execution, right? That I don't even think anything more needs to be said about that, right? You just got to execute at this point. But what, in your opinion, oh yeah.
No. Keep going with that.
I was going to say, then in your guys' opinion, what would you say is some of the other potential downside risks here as well?
Yeah, again, as we've been running this company for a while and trying to get the go-to-market right, one of the things that is not a risk is the technology itself. We've got multiple patents on this technology, and while you can argue patents can be defended or not, the bottom line is that this technology is unique. It would be very, very difficult to replicate in a timely manner. And I think that there is really little to no risk with regard to the technology. It's just getting better. And I think that the really only downside risk would be if we didn't execute, and or if the in the financial services sector, if for some reason the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency decided to let up on mandating that these banks get better with regard to compliance with their data, which we don't think is going to happen. And that's certainly, being honest, is a downside. But that's why we're across multiple industries with a lot of different customers. And I really don't see a lot of downside at this point, other than our failure to execute.
Yeah, but Bobby, I think to that point, I think the keys, right now is that execution, monetization of our technology, and making sure that we don't get too enamored with the coolness of our technology. Let's face it, we've seen a lot of 80% of startup companies have really cool technology, but they don't do the business execution, and that's what we're trying to do and have the discipline. And that's why Andy and I probably would say, we've had a lot of success, in prior companies, but we're kind of like that guy who got a 95% on the exam, and you're harping about the 5% you got wrong. My wife calls me an analyst, to that degree, but that's, the devil's in the details overall. The other thing, and let's kind of address the elephant in the room. There's a lot of rumors about, recession and overall, and yes, that could have some, budgetary issues overall, which is why when we gave the guidance, we didn't rely upon economic, conditions. These were deals. The initial guidance was based on deals we had, were closing or had been closed that were not going to be affected. We've already converted some stuff off of the pipeline, but let me, position this way. During these downturns, you often see companies who will say, we got to get more efficient, overall. We saw this, including with COVID, people saying, man, I've got supply chain issues. I didn't realize I spent billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars on these other systems, and I can't work with my guys remotely, whether it's across the world or across the table. Our pipeline actually grew during COVID. And I would argue that the efficiencies that our solution provides, where we're trying to target, and my head of product, Dharmesh, says this: we got to have a 5x return to guys. So even I'm not saying during a downturn we'll prosper or that we're a defensive stock. We'll probably have some issues, but I'm saying that we can provide that solution, saying we can even help you become more efficient, in up, cycles as well as down turns overall. How that may play out, we'll see. But as Andy said, it's, eyes on the prize and execution. If we do that and continue to provide a value-added solution, I think that regardless of the cycle, we'll continue to grow.
And even if we do have a recession and budgets get cut, remember the example that I gave about the chip company that I spoke with this morning. That's 16 months into a project that was supposed to take 16 weeks. That's costly. And they if their budget gets cut, they may look for a better way to do this that would be more cost efficient. And Boardwalk is that. Now we're not going to cut our pricing, but I will say that we are much more efficient from a cost standpoint than the competition that's out there, and we can move a lot faster. So there actually could be some upside opportunity for us in the event that budgets are starting to get cut. The companies may consider us a little bit differently.
Very good. All right, so we're pretty much right there. So my final question for you guys today is, in your opinion, where do you see the company in 3 to 5 years, and what would you say are the inflection points that will get you there?
Yep. So when I look at our continued growth that we're going to have from our core business around the Boardwalk digital ledger platform in supply chain and some of the other industries, we're going to continue to just kick butt there and add revenue, land and expand. When you go over and you look at the financial services industry and the way in which we're setting up the go-to-market with this, which is through partners, as the regulators continue to get tighter and tighter and more banks need to solve this problem, and we're known now in the industry or will be known as that, imagine the math, Bobby, if, again, I said this earlier, you get 100 or 200 banks at a couple $1 million a year, and now at a 90% margin, and now all of a sudden you're a $200-300 million company, and you start doing the multiple on that, and profitable 90% margin ARR. We believe we're going to be a very valuable company. We believe we are at an inflection point right now, and that there's nothing but upside opportunity. And we are, again, that freight train that is rolling with all engines going. And I think the investors are going to see quite an exciting next 24, 36 months from Boardwalktech.
Charlie, you want to add anything to that? You ready to run through a wall or what?
Yeah, I mean, to kind of put it simply, Andy and I have both been involved. Great companies don't get sold, they get bought. But the thing that we need to execute on is how do we become a $50, then $100 million company? That's what our focus is on. And the way that you do that is continuing to provide solutions to customers. Andy alluded to that. These enterprises have had mission critical issues that they haven't had adequate solutions. They've had good solutions. We believe we have a better solution. In fact, we know it based on the feedback that we've gotten. But if you've got 100, mission critical applications, we only need to do 10 of those 100, and the numbers are in the hundreds, but let's just say 100. That's 10%. 10%, gets us to $1 million per customer. And now all of a sudden that goal of being a $50 to $100 million, revenue company is very plausible. How do you do it? Execution. Keep delivering, a solution that people value, because it's helping their business gain their market share, win business. That's what we're, at that threshold right now. And if we continue to do that, with that focus, not just, 12-month, but 2-3 year focus, we believe that's very reasonable. And that we will get, people who said, hey, we'd like to work with you, or even a deeper conversation.
Hey, Bobby, I want to tell you one last story, which is, I think, interesting and should make you smile. When we were at your conference in December, we met with an investor who decided to take a position, and he got pretty excited. And since he took that position in December, he's continued to kind of watch the company and increase his position. And he sent me an email and he said, Andy, you guys are really one of the only ones that actually said what you were going to do, and you actually went out and did it. And he said, I just wanted to say thank you for kind of being upfront and telling us what you were going to do and actually executing on it. And I thought that was just terrific. And we met him at your conference. We love your conferences, and just thought that that was an interesting thing to share.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Bobby, I would add on to, I think part of that reason is that we don't just rely on, chasing the brass ring, but on contingencies. Things change, you get perception or other issues. And isn't it the nature of business? It's like one big, binomial option tree is next year, what does the market look? How do you, do that with the new information? And again, I'll go back to this idea that we're not trying to chase every single market, but pick and choose. As far as where we have the best leverage of our capital overall. And I say that to any investor, who probably gets involved and it sounds like a really good technology, and then you wonder, why didn't, that pan out? And for those who have been patient, we had to get rid of that legacy stuff. We had to pay down the debt. Now people are, as Andy said, we're letting the numbers speak to themselves, but that does not mean we're complacent. And I will not be complacent ever. It's kind of like you won yesterday's game. You start a new game today. What's the score? 0-0. That's our approach.
Absolutely. All right. Well, you know what? I think we're there. And guys, thank you again for joining me today. So Andy, Charlie, where can our audience go and find more information to follow along the Boardwalktech story? Yeah,
www.boardwalktech.com. And there's a lot of data on there, a lot of great stuff. So come onto the website, and also feel free to reach out to either Charlie or myself if you have questions and want to dig deeper. We're always happy to do that, especially for your guys, Bobby.
Very cool. All right, guys. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me today. Really do appreciate it. Good luck. Stay safe. And I look forward to the next update.
Thanks, Bobby.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not provided as financial, legal, or any other advice. The information is not investment advice or an offer to buy or sell any securities or make any investment. The views expressed by guest speakers are their own, and any reference to third-party products, services, or information does not constitute an endorsement thereof by SNN or its affiliates. SNN expressly disclaims all liability for any individual's use of the information presented in this podcast.